and for round 2 of getting back to the basics with RapidWeaver. I did this. It was actually like 2 months ago. I thought it was like 3 weeks ago, but man, time flies. It was way back in May. I did. It was like an hour and a half long of reviewing the basics in RapidWeaver, and I still get a lot of routine questions. So I thought I would do a slightly more focused one today. I'm gonna redo some of the stuff I did in that episode, because I've seen a lot of confusion lately about a couple topics. So I thought I'd rehash some of those, maybe do a little bit better job at explaining them, hopefully. So yeah, hi everyone. Before we get started, just want to say hi. Just some confirmation in the chat room that you guys can hear me okay, you can see me okay, and all that stuff. I guess I am not full screen right now, so let's just quickly go full screen. So yeah, I hope everyone's doing well. Ciao, McLaren, Mr. McLaren from Music City, Tennessee. Wow. We have Mr. Workman in the house. AB Cole, obviously. Excellent. People from all over the world join in. Excellent. We can hear you. Jesse, thank you for the confirmation. Leon, thanks for coming. Mr. Cole, thank you. Man, South Africa, awesome. Thank you for joining today. Sweet. So last week I actually promised a little bit. I set up the green screen, and man, this morning I just got taken away doing support and helping other people out, and time flew by. I looked up, and all of a sudden it was like 10:45. I live streamed 45 minutes, and it was like, oh no, still in my PJs, had to go get ready, and didn't have time to set up the green screen. So anyway, but you still get me today, and I promise I'll try really hard next week to get the cool green screen thing going on. But I didn't want to obviously not do today just because I didn't have a green screen. So anyway, let's get started. I have a short agenda today of a few key things I want to address. I can blabble on forever about all this stuff. So hopefully I don't, because I want to field your questions as well. So if you have any questions on, what you think could potentially be like a basic thing that you're not fully understanding, put that in the chat box, and I will try my best to answer everything today. Obviously, there's a little delay, so put it in early. So if you have questions, make sure you put that in there so that I have time to, when I'm done through my agenda, we'll jump in and start answering your questions and maybe ironing out a few questions that you have as well. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen, and let's get started. Okay. Let's do this one. Okay. The transition was a little different this time. I just noticed that. It was like a fade plus a smooth thing. Interesting. I'll have to play around with that. Not sure why that happened. Okay. Let me get RapidWeaver started. And actually today, I made sure that I updated RapidWeaver before this, because you know what? Every time I go live, it's like RapidWeaver prompts me for an update. And I'm like, oh no, yeah. Anyway, so I did that beforehand. A little bit more prepared today. Pretty cool. So, okay. First thing I want to talk about today is the difference between HTML and PHP pages. Okay. And actually just pages in general, because I'm gonna throw in a cool little tip that I think most of you probably are not aware of. So page names inside RapidWeaver, we tend to have extensions. It defaults to HTML, right? So let's just go ahead and create a new RapidWeaver project. Let's go ahead. I'm in dark mode, everybody. So if you, yeah, I am in dark mode. Let's go ahead and add a stacks page, because we all love stacks, right? All love stacks. So, as you're probably aware, by default, RapidWeaver will add HTML pages when you create a new page. And HTML, I'm not going to dive into exactly what HTML is, right, or show you the syntax, but essentially you've probably seen it. It's a bunch of brackets that have tags in them, and it has all your content, and it's the language that builds your web page, right? And what is great about HTML is that obviously it's static and it's fast. Okay. And by default, RapidWeaver uses HTML. But there's also this thing called PHP. And what PHP does is PHP allows us to run code in the browser, or actually, I'm sorry. PHP runs code on the server. Okay. So let's say I have a stack that, let's say, for example, Total CMS. Let's just take that as an example. That's obviously a very large product and not a simple one, but it's a great example. With Total CMS, we store and manage our content for our websites on the server, right? So people type in the data that they want to display, let's say a paragraph or an image that they want to display on the homepage. Now, what happens is that text, it could be different at any point in time, right? Because you can change it at any point, and you can do that without RapidWeaver, right? So if we go back to the old RapidWeaver paradigm, before we had something like Total CMS, we had to type everything into RapidWeaver, add all of our images into RapidWeaver, and we published an HTML file. And what was great is because that content was static, right? It never changed. It didn't need to have any sort of logic on the server to determine what the content should be. It is static, right? And that is what HTML is great at, static content. But the problem is, like, let's say you ever wanted to change that, you'd have to open up RapidWeaver, change your content, and republish new HTML to the server. Okay? But PHP allows us to dynamically have smart pages that the server will determine what the content is for us. So in terms of Total CMS, it looks inside the CMS, pulls in the data that we want that's stored on the server, builds the HTML that we need on the fly, and then ships that down to the browser. Okay? This is very important because PHP runs on the server and it sends HTML. The browser doesn't care, right? It requests, and it doesn't care if it's PHP or HTML. It needs HTML back. Okay. So the PHP on the server is generating HTML and shipping that down. Now, again, with Total CMS, that's just an example. It could be something like my TARDIS stack, right? Which uses PHP that says, display this content if we're, in the month of January. Else, if we're not in the month of January, display this content, right? So, PHP allows us to do some smart logic on the server so we can customize what is sent down to the actual browser. So that is what PHP is. Okay. It is scripting that runs on the server, generates HTML, and then that HTML is sent down to the browser. Now, obviously, because the server has to do a little bit of processing, it does take up some time, right? It does take up resources on the server. I'll bet it's pretty minimal with most of the PHP things out there, especially my stuff, right? Even Total CMS is pretty darn quick. We're talking like milliseconds of time. Obviously I can't vouch for everything out there that is PHP, but PHP can be very fast. And now, why all of this talk about HTML versus PHP? Now, a lot of times when we install a stack on our page, a lot of times that stack has the ability to know whether or not it requires PHP or not. So what the stack tries to do, it informs RapidWeaver of, hey, you know what? I'm going to require PHP. So I'm going to require that you change the extension of my web page to be PHP instead of HTML, which is the default. Okay. Now, this is really cool, right? Because it kind of does things for us. But one of the side effects of this is that if you've already published your website and you've published the HTML to your server, but maybe you've added a new PHP stack to your page, what happens is you now are kind of out of sync. Because if you publish to your server, what happens is the server will always prefer to serve up the HTML file versus the PHP file. So if you're using something like my foundation stacks or my SEO helper stacks, I've built in some logic that that like detects that you have multiple of these pages on your server and asks if you want it to, clean it up. And RapidWeaver 8 actually has a little dialogue that alerts you that because you changed the extension of the page, maybe you should manually go to the server and clean it up. Now, MyStacks will clean it up for you automatically with the click of a button, which is cool. But just be aware, if you are using HTML pages and you switch to PHP, you're going to have to clean up that file. Okay, let's look at an example. Let me jump into that RapidWeaver project that I opened up here. Okay, so here, if we notice inside this project, if I look at my general project settings, actually, let's go to the page inspector. Okay, we'll notice here, inside here, that the file name is called index.html. Okay, cool. So we have it created an HTML file. Now, if I add in I talked about TARDIS earlier. Let's go ahead and add a TARDIS stack to the page. Now, if I add TARDIS to the page, okay, and if we look at the page inspector now, I may need to. Sometimes here's the thing. Even though I added this to the page, sometimes it requires that I like switch a page and come back, and then it changes. It's a little wonky sometimes, unfortunately. So if I add another stacks page and if I go back, okay. So if you notice, I added a new stacks page and I went back to my home page, and let's just call this home, and we'll just call that page 2. Okay. So if I changed to a page and I went back to my home page, we'll notice that the file name is now index.php. Okay. So again, if I had already published this to my server, I'd have to make sure that I went to the server, deleted that index.html file. Okay. Now, if you have a little bit of forethought, there's something that we can do that I went over in the last video, but I didn't really explain why, like what I just explained, what HTML is, what PHP is, and all that. So if you go into I think it's in the advanced settings. Yes, it's in the advanced settings in your project file. What you can do is you can change the default extension. So by default, it's HTML, but if you wanted to, you can change this to be PHP. Okay. And what this does is any new page that we add automatically gets PHP. Now, what's cool about that is if we don't put any stacks on there that require PHP, it doesn't really matter. Okay. Your server is going to work with a PHP file, even though it maybe contains only HTML. And you're going to notice zero performance hits whether or not your page extension is PHP or HTML. Doesn't really matter. Okay. But it's a great thing that we can do to kind of save us from the headache of having these duplicate files on our server. And maybe, I've seen so many people waste hours of time because they publish their page and then they look and they go, I don't see my changes. Right. And they make some more changes and they publish and they open up the browser and they're like, I don't see any of my changes in the browser. RapidWeaver publishing is broken. Well, what happened is their page changed from index.html to index.php. Okay. Let's do a quick test. So if I go to, let me open up transmit here. Let me open up a new window. Okay. I'm going to go to my sandbox server. And let's open up a browser. Let's go to sandbox.joeworkman.net. And if you guys are watching this live, you guys can follow along if you want to head over to sandbox.joeworkman.net right now. So here I have, I believe this is index.html. Nope. Okay. So if you notice, index.html does not exist. But if I go to index.php, that is the actual page that's getting served. Now, I won't go off on a tangent really quick. I'm going to finish this thought. So what I'm going to do right now, for fun, is I'm going to create I'm just going to manually create an index.html file in here. Let's do a new file. I'm going to call it index.html. Okay, I'm not going to publish this from RapidWeaver. I'm just going to go ahead and quickly edit this file inside VS Code. Oops, sorry, you guys gotta. Okay, cool. So here I got a little code window, and I'm just going to do something simple. I can just do H1, and we're going to do hello live streamers. Okay, and I'm going to save that. So now if I go to sandbox.joeworkman.net/index.php, we will still see this page because I'm explicitly calling out that we're going to go to index.php. But if we remove that page and I just go to sandbox.joeworkman.net, okay, now by default, what servers will do is, let's find out. I'm going to click enter. Boom. What? Wait, but I had I had my index.php on the server. Well, it doesn't matter because I now have both index.html and index.php on my server, right? And when you have both of those on the server will always serve up the HTML file first. Okay? As in this instance. Now, obviously, I can test whether or not a PHP file is there by typing in, explicitly telling the browser to go to index.php, okay? But we want pretty URLs. We don't want our index files to be, in every URL, right? Because sandbox.joeworkman.net looks better than sandbox.joeworkman.net/index.php, right? I mean, the whole point, so I guess another thing, a tangent I stopped myself from going on is we should name all of our pages index. Okay, there's a couple caveats with that. Like, for example, if you're using pretty URLs with Total CMS, in certain situations, I recommend you call it something other than index. But that's an edge case, right? And probably maybe the only one I could think of right now is if you're using pretty URLs and for some other reasons, you want to use something different than index.php or index.html. All of your web pages should be called index.html or index.php. And I'm recommending you just go straight out and call everything index.php because of the convenience of not having to worry about these duplicate files on your server. Does that make sense? Okay. So if I were to type in index.php, obviously I get the page that we want to be. But because I'd accidentally had that index.html file in there, voila, the server doesn't care, right? It's going to serve up that HTML instead of the PHP. Okay. So, and obviously what you'd want to do is, if you're not using Foundation or SEO Helper that has it'll display a little light box and it'll ask you, do you want to keep the HTML or the PHP file, or which one do you want to remove? And you can click the button, and then Foundation or SEO Helper will do that for you automatically. Will clean it up. But if you don't have any of those cool tools, you can use your favorite FTP app. Here I use Transmit, and you FTP to your server. You find the file. If you look here, I have an index.html file and an index.php file. Obviously, I don't want the HTML file, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and right-click and say, delete that bad boy, right? Yes, delete transmit. Thank you very much. Cool. And I guess if we want to just reiterate, now if I go back to sandbox.joeworkman.net, okay, without anything, if you look at it doesn't just specify the exact page name. It serves up the correct one that I want. It serves up the PHP page because the HTML isn't there anymore. Okay, so and I hope that helps you out in terms of page names. Where'd my RapidWeaver project go? There it is. Okay, so again, if you go back to the advanced, change when you start a new project, change the default extension to PHP. I think it's a good practice. Okay, it will save you a lot of headache and potentially hours of troubleshooting, wondering why your changes aren't getting published when in fact they are. It's just you have two files published on the page, right? So good stuff there. Next tip that I went over is, remember, always keep your files and folder names or your file names set to index. Okay, so for example, let me build out a quick little sample page here. let's do home. Let's say I have products, and let's add another page. We have an about page, right? So let's call this about, and we'll do one more, which is a contact us page, right? Okay. Now I'm not going to add any content. I'm not going to dive into how to build this page. I'm just looking at the site structure. I have a simple 4-page website right now. I have a home page, a product page, an about page, and a contact us page. And what I want to focus on is, let me show you what I've seen a lot of people do. Okay, is what I see them do is I see them do stuff like this, where maybe they'll delete the folder name, and they'll do like products.html. Okay, or then they'll go to the about page, and then they'll call this about.php, right? And then the contact us page, they'll call this contact.php. Okay, now you can do that. Your site will work. Okay, but it doesn't look very pretty. Okay, because you're gonna have that page extension right at the end, and yeah, don't do that. Keep everything, all the pages named index.php. Okay, and how should we do that instead, right? So what we should do is we should name our folders what we want. So we'll go, we're going to name this /products, and then we're going to name our file name index.php. Okay. And then here we're going to do /about, and we're going to call that index.php. And then on contacts, we're going to name the folder /contact, and we're going to call that index.php. Okay. Now when we do that, okay, our let me open up a quick text browser here. Okay. Okay. So let's just use a Weaver space URL as an example. Make this a little bit bigger so it's easier for you guys to see. Okay. Now we could do this. Like, let's just take this as an example. I had Weaver space about.php. Okay. As so let's look at the about page. You could do that, right? Or what you could do is you have /about, right? Like, just from from an SEO perspective or an aesthetics perspective, like this will work, right? You could just say Weaver space /about.php. Now, but like if you named your page index.php, then you could do this, right? Weaver space /about. And that looks a lot nicer. If you ever need to say a URL, it's easier to say, right? So and the only way to do that is if you name all of your pages index.php or index.html, right? Because if you don't name your page index.html or index.php, the server needs to know exactly where you want, right? So this is a benefit, right? I recommend you name everything index.php so that you can get these nicer looking URLs. They're nicer to look at. They're nicer to say. So if you want to redirect someone to a particular page, right? It's much easier to say /about than /about.php, right? And also, like, it also lets you expand in the future. Let's say I wanted to add about, and then let's say I wanted to add about me. I wanted to add about Joe Workman or something like that, right? I could just add another folder to that, right? And so it just extends. It makes it look nicer. It's more forward thinking for the future. If you wanted to add subdirectories to about, or maybe products, right? So maybe you have /products, and then you have or in my case I have stacks, right? I already have /stacks, and then I have under there I have like TARDIS, and then under that I have stacks /total CMS, stack /foundation, stack / I mean, you're building a hierarchy of your website, and by using these folders instead of using the page name, you get a lot more flexibility. So don't want to beat a dead horse, but folder structure is very important. Okay. I have a lot more to say about folder structure today. But before I do that, I want to go off on one other kind of cool tangent. And that is another trick that we can do with file names. So here's another edge case. I said name all your pages index.php or index.html. Here's a cool trick for even probably the advanced users in this live stream. Okay, is hopefully a lot of you are aware. There's been a lot of talk since I released SEO Helper, especially about SEO and all of the stuff that you can do with SEO Helper. Now, you're probably aware of one of the files that is used for SEO is called Robots.txt. Now, SEO Helper allows you to add meta tags and stuff like that on every single page for robots, but it currently doesn't allow you to manage a robots.txt. Now, spoiler, I'm working on an update that will allow you to update a robots.txt file, but I thought it'd be fun to kind of show you how you could do that now without SEO Helper. And even in the future, obviously you could do this in the future and not even purchase SEO Helper. I think SEO Helper is cool. Go ahead and get it if you don't have it. But soon I will have an update that will allow you to manage a robots.txt file. But in order to do that, I got to show you some cool tricks. And I'm just going to actually open up the existing Weaver Space file actually, because I use this trick on the actual Weaver Space site. So if we look here, I have a file here called robots, a page added to my project. And here is, now robots has a very particular syntax. Okay. And you can get more information on, I think it's robots.txt.org. Here, yes. So, www.robots.txt.org. There's all kinds of information about the syntax and all that jazz for the file here. If you don't want to learn this syntax, I got you back. SEO Helper will do this pretty soon. Within about a month or so, maybe sooner, who knows? But if for those of you that want to learn some of this geeky stuff, you can go ahead and learn it here. And basically, here's the robots that I currently have right now on Weaver Space. So we say for all search engines, I want you to don't index anything in /admin, don't index anything in /import. Don't index anything that's in the privacy policy or the terms of service. I don't want any of those things indexed by any search engine. Okay. Now, how do I add this? Like, what page is this, Joe? How the heck did you do that? Right. And how do we? So on the server, the file has to be named robots.txt. How did we do that? Well, if we look at my page setup for this, this is just an HTML page. So, what we do is we name the file robots.txt. Shocker, right? So I added an HTML page and I set it up so that the file name is set to be robots.txt. And there's one more important thing that we need to set. And that is here in the HTML page settings, you have to uncheck apply theme. When you uncheck apply theme, RapidWeaver does not put any sort of theme wrapper around this page. So you can name it, you can put whatever you want, right? There's another common file called humans.txt. It's not really used for SEO or anything, but it is kind of a standard. I think it's humans.txt.org. And that's another kind of text file that you can add to your RapidWeaver project if you want. And it's just like says who's the author of the website, it's just information about your website. So it's kind of a standard if you want to display and advertise who you are and who made the website and who is behind it. There's this thing called humans.txt that you could do as well. But so let's do that over on this page here on this new project file. So I'm going to go ahead and add an HTML code page. So I added HTML code. I'm going to name this robots. It doesn't really matter what you call the page name. But the folder I want it to, I'm going to put the file name to be robots.txt. And the folder I want it to be at the top of the website. So I'm going to put a /. Then we're going to go into the code here. Make sure that this apply theme checkbox is not checked. Okay. And then here you could just type out your stuff. So I'm just gonna, let's say, user agent star. This is like the default robots stuff. If you wanted just to index everything, that's what it is. And now if I publish this to my server, that's exactly what we're going to get. It's going to create a file called Robots.txt, and you can fully manage it. It's all just plain text right here. And all that syntax is on that Robots.txt.org site. Okay. But if you don't want to do that all on your own, just wait for SEO Helper, the next big update. And I'm working on getting a Robot.txt editor directly inside SEO Helper. So good stuff there. Okay. So I've been talking about folders, and there's been a lot of some confusion. I'm going to close this file because I don't want to modify that by accident. Okay. What kind of prompted me to really redo this live stream today was the next topic, which is actually how folders are determined and structured inside RapidWeaver. Because there's two ways to really do this. And if you own my book on RapidWeaver, the RapidWeaver book by Joe Workman, it does cover RapidWeaver 5, but like 90% of the book is still relevant, especially for all the basics. I actually go on about this pretty in depth as well inside the book. So if you have that and you're a reading type person, go ahead and look it up in the book. I believe it's in chapter 2, maybe 3, where I talk about folder naming and page names and all that stuff. Okay. Now, when I created these pages, I added /products, okay, as the folder name. Now, if you notice, I started with the /. Okay. You don't necessarily need to do that. Okay. It is a personal preference of mine. Let me show you how a lot of RapidWeaver users do it. And by default, when you add a new page, RapidWeaver doesn't add a /. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go throughout all these pages. I'm going to remove the /. Well, it needs the / on the robots because it's on the root anyway. But okay. I'll just move that up. Okay. So now I have products, about, and contact. Okay. As my page names. Now, in this is a very simple site. Obviously, there's no hierarchy to the pages and whatnot. And in this case, this is exactly the same as what I had before. Okay. This contact page will get published at the top of the website, and this particular page will be /contact. Okay. Same exact thing as I had before. But as soon as we start adding sub pages, a lot of this stuff really changes. Okay. So let's say, for example, okay, let's say I add contact inside of about. So if you notice over here in the navigation, the contact page, okay, is now a child of the about page. This changes everything. Okay. Now, this page's hierarchy over on the side serves two purposes. Okay. A lot of people think that it can define the hierarchy of your URLs. Okay. So right now, since I added the contact us inside the about page, okay, where'd my text editor go? Okay. What that does is it now makes the URL /about, and because I added the contact page as the child stack, it adds contact under the about URL. So the URL to my contact page is now /about/contact. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, right? So if we go back to RapidWeaver, I have an about page and I set the folder to be about, and I had a contact page and I set the folder to be contact. Again, no slashes. Okay, this is all just the name. Okay. So since I have contact as a child of the about page, RapidWeaver says, okay, you want this to be a child. I'm going to put it as a child of the URL as well. Okay. But this page's navigation over here on the left serves a second purpose. It also serves as the hierarchy of our menus inside RapidWeaver, right? So if we looked at a menu for this site, right? Here, let's go ahead and let me just use a default theme here. I'll use the RapidWeaver 7 themes. I like, let's use Nick Cates theme. Okay. So if I preview this page, we'll see that under About, I have a Contact Us page. And so the hierarchy of these pages here also reflects the hierarchy of your menu system. But what if you wanted your menu system and your URL structure to be separate? Like what if I wanted Contact Us to be under the About in the menu, but I didn't want it to be under About in the URL structure? Can we do that? Totally. And this is how I do everything. Okay. So, by default, as I said, RapidWeaver does not add any slashes to the About page or to any folder. Sorry. It doesn't add any slashes to the folder name. But if we add slashes to our folder, we can be explicit with how RapidWeaver defines and where it publishes this page. So if I say that this folder is /about, okay, and then inside the Contact Us page, if I say this is /contact, no matter where I put these pages inside the menu structure of the pages, that is the URL. Okay, so even if, let's say, for example, I put About under products, and let's put a / under products as well. Okay, let's say, so now I have products, About, Contact Us. I have 3 levels of URLs in my menu. Okay, let's preview that. So I have products, then I have About, and this particular theme doesn't support a third menu hierarchy, right? But you get it. Under About would be, in some, if they support a second level, it would be Contact Us in the menu. But from a URL perspective, because I added those slashes, we would have the Contact Us page, the About page would be /about. The Contact Us page would be /contact, right? So I'm now, because I'm using those slashes, I'm explicitly setting the URL of that page, no matter where it is inside of the menu structure. As AB Cole says in the text, yes, it is 100% based off Unix directory structure. So if you are a geek, like probably Mr. Cole is, that is exactly how it works, off a Unix-based directory structure, okay, or Linux-based or Mac-based, however you want to call it, okay? So, but very important, I had a lot of people, they were confused because in my site lock demo that I had, or the site lock video that I did on SEO Helper, and in my demo files, I used the slashes. And so what I tend to do is, here, let me undo a lot of these pages here. I'm going to add another product. Let's just call this, I'm going to add stacks under product. I'm going to add another one. Let's call it RapidWeaver, I guess. Oops. Okay. So underneath products, I've added 2 pages, stacks and RapidWeaver. Okay. And what I do is, now you could just put stacks as the folder name. And this is the RapidWeaver page. If you put just the folder name like this, RapidWeaver is going to automatically determine where to place this page based on where it is inside products, or where it's placed inside this navigation, right? So right now, if I set this folder name to be RapidWeaver, right now the URL to this page is /products, because it's inside the products page, /RapidWeaver. But if I move this page to the About, the URL to this page is changed. It is now /about/RapidWeaver. Hopefully that makes sense. Now, let's say, let's go to my way, how I explicitly call out that URL. Inside the folder, if I do /products/RapidWeaver, okay, Now, no matter where this page is inside this menu structure or this page structure, the URL to this page will always be /products/RapidWeaver. Okay, and if I did it to the same thing to the stacks page, I would do /products/stacks. Okay, because I'm explicitly calling out the full folder path to this page, no matter where I put it, it will always be that URL. So if I take RapidWeaver and throw it underneath Contact Us, doesn't matter. It will show up there inside the menu, but the URL to the page will always be /products/RapidWeaver, because I explicitly started off with a slash and I provided the full path to that page. Okay. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense. I kind of actually spent a lot more time on that than I thought I was going to. But I wanted to hammer that home because that confuses a lot of people. And I think it's a very basic thing that is very powerful, to know how everything happens with that. So I have a couple other things that I wanted to make sure that I went over. So another common error that I see is a lot. So last week, I did a live stream on CSS. And I talked how if you use your own CSS, or if someone supplies CSS, or you Google and you find some cool CSS online, right? Where do you put that stuff? Right? So as I explained last week, if you want it to be explicitly on one page, you're going to go to the page inspector and you're going to go to the third tab here, and you'll notice that there's multiple tabs here. Okay, CSS, JavaScript, prefix, head, and body. Okay, now this is where you will put in the CSS. Now, one thing, let me just do H1, just a really simple color green. Okay, that's a really simple CSS rule. Okay, it calls all H1s and it makes them green. Okay, I'm not going to teach CSS right now, but what I do want to teach is there are sometimes you'll see snippets online, especially if you see snippets online that have style tags. Okay, and it looks something like this. Here, let me go ahead and put this in this bigger window. So let's say you find something online and you'll see that it has these style tags wrapped around it. Okay, and I see a lot of people, what they'll do is that they'll copy this snippet that they found online, and then they'll paste this directly into the CSS tab in RapidWeaver. And that is wrong. Okay, you cannot have these style tags. Okay, this CSX box can only contain CSS, and those style tags are HTML, baby. Okay, so make sure that you delete those style tags. And the same rule goes if we go to the code block over here on the left. If you go to the CSS tab here, same thing goes here. Do not put style tags. It will break your page, and you'll be wondering probably for hours or days why your page is broken. Okay, so do not put style tags in here. Same thing, JavaScript. Now, earlier on, we talked about PHP and how it's code that runs on the server. Well, guess what? JavaScript is code that gets downloaded to the browser and runs in the browser. Okay, and JavaScript code can be anywhere from Google Analytics snippets to whatever, right? There's all kinds of snippets online, some sort of embed code that you found in some cool widget that you're using or you want to use, right? And it tells you, put this in the JavaScript on your page, and you're like, I know where that goes. This is JavaScript. I'm going to put it right here in this JavaScript code snippet, or inside this tab on the page inspector, right? Again, I just want to iterate the code that goes inside the site-wide code goes on every page, and the page inspector goes in just that one page. Okay. So what about JavaScript? Like, okay, let's look at some JavaScript that you might find online, right? You'll probably find stuff that has like script tags, and then inside these script tags is, I don't know, some JavaScript. Okay. That's very simple JavaScript. Obviously, it doesn't really do much, but this is valid JavaScript, right? So a lot of times what people do is, and this is for Google Analytics as well, right? They'll take this script snippet that they found online, and they'll go into RapidWeaver. They find, hey, this is JavaScript. I'm going to go into the JavaScript tab, and I'm going to paste that bad boy in there. Wrong. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200. Doesn't work. It will break your page. Same thing. Guess what? If you go to the page and you paste this inside here, wrong. Doesn't work. Can't do it. Your page will break. Okay. And you'll probably spend, again, days or weeks, or maybe you'll even give up and you don't know what the heck's going on. And that's because these tabs in RapidWeaver must contain only JavaScript. And guess what? Those script tags, those are HTML. Okay. So what we need to do is you need to delete those script tags. Then your page will work. And will your JavaScript code work? Hopefully, right? Obviously, I can't be responsible for all JavaScript snippets you find online. Okay. But remove those script tags. Okay. That will save you a lot of heartache. Now, if something says, place this code snippet, a lot of times those JavaScript snippets that we find say, place this in your head. Okay. That, sir, is where you can put your script tags. Okay. So this place, whether or not it's in the site-wide code or the head tab in your pages, that can contain script tags, that can contain style tags. That is where that stuff goes. Okay, so you have two options. You either put it in the head with the script and style tags. Sorry, it's kind of hard to read that because of the colors that RapidWeaver chose. But as you see, this is, if you want them to contain those tags, put them in head. Else you could put them in the JavaScript and CSS tabs without those script and style tags. Okay, so this is the place where it goes. Now, depending on the theme, some things say place it as high as possible in the head, or some things say place it as low as possible in the head. You don't really have control over that. Okay, the theme does. So the theme dictates where this stuff goes on the page, but most themes should put this in the head. Okay, JavaScript, chances are that will go in the head in some themes. Foundation actually puts that at the very bottom of the page because Foundation, for speed wise, we want JavaScript to run on the bottom if we can for performance. So Foundation actually puts JavaScript at the bottom of the page, as close to the bottom as possible. Now, you might be wondering, okay, Joe, what's the body tab, right? Again, the theme dictates where that goes. A Foundation, it puts it at the very bottom of the page, and this is where you could put script tags as well. So you could put script or style tags. So the head and body must contain HTML. Okay. And when you add script tags with JavaScript inside of it, that is HTML because you're defining a script tag and you're telling the HTML, hey, inside of these tags is JavaScript. Okay. So it's kind of a mixture of JavaScript and CSS, right? When you use these tags. Okay. But inside head and body must contain HTML. Not raw JavaScript, not raw CSS, must contain HTML. And you can have JavaScript and CSS in there as long as they're wrapped with the proper HTML tags of script and style. But, okay, if you want CSS and JavaScript raw on the page, do not put those HTML tags inside the CSS and JavaScript tabs. Hope that helps. I guess to be thorough, the last tab here is called prefix. 99.9% of the time, you probably will never need to use this. If you are a SiteLock user, previously to my SiteLock stacks, you would have to put some code in here. A lot of times, this is where you would put PHP code, okay? And you'd have to put the PHP tags in there, but this is stuff that gets inserted above like all the HTML, even the document decoration, even above the head, all that stuff. So page prefix stuff, if you need to do that, you'll probably know it. And yeah, SiteLock is probably one of the larger, more well-known places or pieces of software that you would use something like that. If you have my SiteLock stacks, you don't need to worry about it then because my SiteLock stacks do all the work for you. So anyway, that's cool. And yeah, that pretty much does it for what I wanted to review today. I hope this helps you out. Hope you got a lot out of today. I guess right now I promised I would look through the chat room. So let's go ahead and look at the chat. And so I guess just people praising me because, yeah, so I see some people in the chat wasted a lot of time debugging some stuff that I went over today. So yeah, I'm glad I took a long time. I only focused on a couple small things today, but I really kind of deep dived into them. And I hope you learned a lot today. Thank you very much for joining. If there are any more questions, please post them in the chat room while I am just saying my goodbyes. But yeah, anyway, next week I'll make sure I try to get that green screen. Make sure if you didn't check out the live stream that I did on RW Basics Round 1, I went over a lot more over there. I went over a lot of stuff in that live stream, and you should definitely check it out because I go over almost every setting inside RapidWeaver, and it was really, really good. So make sure you check out that video. It's on our YouTube channel. And yeah, I did it. I think it's back in May, but just go to the playlist for all of our live streams and you could check that out. It was called Back to RDB Basics. Same thing as this one. This was just called Round 2. So yeah, thank you very much. Hope you guys enjoyed today. I appreciate you guys joining live. I hope you get a lot out of these things. I enjoy doing them, and hopefully they help you out. So take care. Hope to see you guys next week in the chat room. And yeah, leave some comments below if how high we can get it. And yeah, we'll talk to you next week. Hopefully we'll see you this Friday at the Hangout as well.